So we're here. The workshop's titled Contemporary Music Production for a very specific reason because it's getting harder and harder to define genres, right? Um, yeah, so I think this is a nice title that encapsulates everything that musicians do. What is contemporary art? What does it mean to make contemporary art? Does it mean that you involve AI necessarily? The hot topic. Something I have to be honest about, I have not riddled with at all. So, if there's any AI questions or music making questions relating to AI, maybe we can still address those, but I might not be aware of specifics. Sounds good, yeah? So, what does it mean to make contemporary art? Are you a musician, a hobbyist, an aspiring electronic music producer? Are you already a singer songwriter? Someone who's making music but wants to perform live, or learn how to produce this stuff yourselves? I think the next line summarizes contemporary art pretty well. It's a culmination of creativity, and tell me if you agree or don't. Making contemporary art is a culmination of creativity, your ideas, the many tools and possibilities, and certainly technology. All of these come together to create and distribute and share art with the world, right? Yes? Period. Awesome. Cool. Here comes my favorite bit. What does it mean to be a contemporary producer? Okay, I've already told every student that I mentor that you carry an immense weight on your shoulders when you call yourself a producer. Pat yourself on the back to start with because it's no easy feat. You're no longer just that one guy who plays one instrument. Back in the day, it was enough. No, I play a guitar beautifully. I'll find somebody who sings, plays the drums. We'll come together. Everyone's ideas pool in. Then we come to a space like a studio, which is, a recording room so that we can finally lay down our ideas, right? But what's the role of a contemporary music producer? When you say you're producing music, to a large extent, you're doing most of this all by yourself. You're performing multiple virtual instruments, performing with those maybe, still retaining any art or musicianship that you might have from being a musician or having any formal education with an instrument, right? You're learning to record, you're learning to edit, you're learning to process, you're learning to arrange, you're learning to mix. In some cases, you'll even master that, distribute it, take care of post distribution, speak to people, create a network, and find possibilities to connect with your audiences live, right? Yeah, so that's a lot of things that you're doing as a producer. Awesome. As long as you recognize that, it becomes easier to see what you're good at, what you're, naturally, capable of, and where you might require a little bit of help or work. And it's okay to, seek help in aspects of mixing or mastering or distribution where necessary to support your art. Make sense? Yes. So far, everyone's on page. Awesome. Cool. So we'll obviously throughout, the next hour and a half look at the role of a digital audio workstation, in this case, Ableton Live 11. I'm an Ableton certified trainer. I use Ableton, but some of you may not know I am also a Pro Tools 200 level certified instructor, and it has its own place in the post production, the recording, and studio environment. I have inclined to use Ableton for all my production, mastering purposes, and mixing even. So it's a tool at the end of the day. Okay, it's a digital audio workstation. What does it facilitate? What does any DAW facilitate? It allows you to create, store, refine, arrange, perform, edit, process, use pre-made sound ideas and loops as starting points and sources of inspiration, correct? Yes, pretty much the whole kit for you to be an independent producer, someone who can manage their craft from its inception to distribution. Awesome. All right, before we start looking at sessions and ways of going about creative workflows, let's just quickly speak about inspiration. right? How many seek inspiration for, you know, music making, creative ideas? You're obviously in some ways, waiting to be inspired. Either it's the show that you attended last of your favorite artist, maybe a performance you heard online, maybe some scores you heard, in film or series you're watching, whatever it is that inspired you to get to your own notion that I'm going to be a producer and make music, correct? Yes, right. However, let's put this idea to rest, because if you want to be a music producer and a professional, then this is for you. Inspiration is for the amateurs, a professional gets to work. Simple. For all of the aspiring audio engineers, music producers, it's pretty much a full day activity, just as any other job, to sit down, to work, to practice, to try things out and refine your skills to being that artist, right? When you think of an artist, when you say the name A.R. Rahman, certain ideas come to your mind, right? When you say Preetham, certain ideas come to your mind. When you say Arjit Singh, certain ideas come to your mind. I'm just taking names for things that might be common. Metallica, a certain sound and vibe and energy comes to your mind. Dead Mouse, Tiesto, Eric Prydz, right? Different energy, different styles, different things come to your mind, right? So, just to say that only through mining through these many possibilities can you find your artistic self. And the more you repeat that process, the easier it is for us to define you as that entity, saying that, okay, this is what we hear and we guess it's probably your work. Makes sense, right? Yeah. Awesome. Cool. And also happy accidents in the studio space, in the creative space. When you're working with contemporary tools and technologies, there's a lot of happy accidents that are bound to occur, and you must be aware enough to embrace those. If you let those pass, it might be those very unique things that have that have probably been missed. So you have to keep your ears open, be mindful of everything that is happening around you in the space. Obviously, if you're a musician, you must bring whatever it is that you have learned, whether that is music theory, playing the instrument itself, which entails performance, maybe songwriting, or conceiving ideas through that particular instrument into contemporary music, right? But if you're not a musician, is this space not for you? That's absolutely untrue. If you're not a musician, technology allows for enough tools to give you an equal footing so that you can take care of aspects such as music theory. People's, are like, okay, what is music theory? And if I don't know music theory, how can I work with instruments? So technology is giving you an opportunity to, maybe to some degree make that aspect more approachable, more hands on, even for non musicians. And obviously, what's the distinction? This is something that might be very obvious, but I'll still put it out there. There's a distinction, okay? When you hear a musician usually record and make art, they tend to have more musicality, right? Shifts in chord progressions, moods, and those intricate details, but the sound remains more or less the same. A guitar would remain a guitar, the vocal would remain a vocal, and the drum set, to a large extent, the drum set, right? So, whatever's their tool of expression, the sound would remain more or less unchanged. But of course, there's a lot of aspects that can bring in mood and, energy to this. As a non musician, you have the open possibility, which is of working with electronic or virtual instruments and electronic synthesizers and samplers. So there's an endless possibility of sounds, but then there might be a limited vocabulary of music theory, which is why electronic music ends up being a little more repetitious. Make sense? So there is room for everyone here. And I'm like, if you're just starting out, I'm going to leave you some resources at the end of the workshop. But if you're just starting out, maybe if you've never ridden a bicycle, maybe just getting one leg on top is an achievement. If you're a newborn, maybe just getting off your hinds is enough. If you've never spoken a language, maybe just learning the fun few words as we normally do first is enough to give us headway. as long as you know it's achievable and you keep practicing, right? I think of it from the mindset of an infant. Doesn't know how to speak and is constantly intrigued by this idea of how these adults are moving around in my space so freely. I'm going to do it one day. I don't know how yet. I'm going to do it. And the attempts are galore, right? You never stop attempting that, and you make small progressive increments. And a few years later, do you think about it? You don't. Same with music technology. Awesome, good. So there's room for everyone, of course. All right, let's get into a few practical examples. By the way, just up on my screen here is my website. It's wavescraftmastering.com. I review finished mixes for producers so that they can refine it as much as possible before we take it to mastering and release. I run online one-to-one mentorship programs both for producers and mixing engineers. It's something I now do as India's only online Ableton Certified Training Center, and I'm very, very happy to be invited to Grace Park Academy to host this workshop, and in the past also teach their 1 year diploma program students for Ableton and for both music production and mixing. All right, so that's me. It's me again on the Ableton website. That's about the online academy. And this is the online academy page on the website that tells you what the process is, what the modules are, and how you might approach it. Something we'll come to before we broke away into looking at sessions. I'll put those screens away. Cool. Guys online, if you have any questions while we're, you know, running through this workshop, maybe note them down, and someone can pass them on at any point if that is required. Okay, cool. Awesome. So I have a session here. I have a push to controller that I can use to trigger some of these ideas, probably record also in the studio space. We'll look at that in a moment. Awesome. Each of these sessions that I have here queued up has a bit of a different takeaway from the aspects of making music, just as we discussed as a contemporary producer. All right, all set? Super. Let's hear this and we'll break things down. How many of you have, by the way, used Ableton Live? Of course, you guys have had a hand at it during the course, but how many of you are attending? Have you worked with Ableton Live before? No, so it's completely new to you. Awesome. Have you? Awesome. Have you?
I've done the course.
You've done the
Yeah,
course.
but like a couple batches ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
super. All right, all right. And you?
No.
Not really. Super. Okay, so it's a digital audio workstation. The UI might be a little different from what you might have seen, on the internet or if you use a different tool. But at the end of the day, it still entails working with audio tracks, MIDI tracks that communicate note information to virtual instruments, and obviously enough of effects, etc., to embellish these ideas to bounce off as a finished song or piece of music. All right, so just to be clear, when you open Ableton Live, you know, in its most intimidating form is what I believe, because there's nothing more intimidating than having a staring contest with your DAW, right? You might as well put in something, a pappy, paw, one loop, something there that tells you, okay, I want to filter this. I don't like this. I want to edit it. Okay, something should come after this or before this. That's when things can go, right? So, yeah. So, anyways, we're looking at Ableton Live session view. What I love about this window for those who are new is that it's non-linear. There's no timeline. You can lay down musical ideas as clips. Those could be one shot or one single sound ideas or entire songs or loops. And then you can mix and match ideas, arrange it later. Then obviously you have the more linear arrangement view. When you write to a timeline, intro, verse, chorus that we've been doing for 50 odd years, and I don't know why we're still repeating the process. It works, I guess. Yeah, sense of familiarity. You can write entirely here and then take this bit into the session view to perform it live using a controller like the push or one of your choice. Make sense? Yeah. By the way, just to also speak of this device here, the Push 2 is Ableton Live in its entirety in a manner that is hands on. I don't possibly need to look at my screen if I want to in both the production and which is the studio and on stage. And this is the Push 2. Now you have the Push 3, which in itself has come out with a standalone model with, more performative playing, something that's, been an attribute of speech in any playable instrument. So you have performative contours that allow you to modulate volume, pitch between the notes, whereas something like a piano or something like these pads give you a very rigid stepped playing between different note pitches. All right, we'll come to more detail. So that's the Push 2, and I'll use that a bit alongside. All right, so I have a few sessions. Let's start listening to these. Cool again. So that's the familiar arrangement window wherein we do have these laid down on a timeline. So you obviously expect a few things to play and stop as the playhead moves across, but I'm going to use the session view here instead. Let's go. All right. So that's the bass. It's a loop I might have manipulated a little bit for its timing. Use the warp algorithm to make sure that, Ableton identifies what kind of instrument this is, albeit virtual, and, retain tonality. Am I using any effects on this? I am. So you can see there's a slight embellishment of that raw sound, which has been done within the DAW using something known as an effect rack. So when I turn that on, saturates the signal a little bit, makes it more mid-tone, so it's easy to identify note pitches. Let's move forward. Here we go. By the way, I discovered this instrument thanks to a bit of exploration that I was doing. Turns out I'm in love with the sound. It's called the Bazowski. Yeah, it's a string instrument, obviously, something that looks like a guitar but is shaped slightly differently. Check it out. And all these sounds here are part of one sound pack by Earth Movements. If you guys are sound designers or somebody who likes loops, check out Earth Movements. These guys are amazing. They have better samples of Indian instruments and regional ethnic instruments than I've heard before. Personally, to my choice, it sounded great. Check it out. Everything you're hearing in this particular set is part of that. So that's the string. Again, let me remind you, I'm not a musician. So I hack my way into making music using pre-recorded sound ideas, processing them, but giving it my narrative. So it's still contemporary art, right? If you played a guitar, I would say, cool, layer it with the guitar sound, right? Add some guitar funk to this. If you don't do that, you're not giving it your own personal touch. Then what's the difference between, an AI unsatisfactorily making a piece of music and we really finding the contention from dwelling into art, which was the whole purpose? Okay, cool, let's go. I love this sound. Again, there's an instrument rack. Sorry, that's an audio effect track, not an instrument track. And those are a couple of macro controls so that I have overview or global control of the many processes happening within a rack. A rack is like a cupboard, you'll have, yeah, a rack that you can store anything in and chain devices up together. All right, let's move forward. I can access my mixer here, so at some point if I want to do a solo, I could do, yeah, back in. Yeah, so while performing live, there's this, call and response from the audience, and you can, depending on what you need, twiddle with stuff. There you go, another Buzauki loop. Yeah, that's the instrument. Something interesting happening here. You can hear it as a nice chopped up sound. It's actually not that, it's this. It's long sustained notes that using Ableton's algorithm are being able to chop up into this bit that is supportive. Finally getting to rhythm bits, right? Bass, melody, rhythm, harmony being the core elements of any piece of music. Any piece of music, okay? And for the main bit, let's go. Here we go. Right? So I brought that whole idea in first along with the beat, but now I'm breaking it back. Cool. And I can be playful with that, yeah? And that is a bit of a clip also. We leave that playing now as we bring in these MIDI triggered beats in. I've still done a little bit, actually a lot. I've probably played the role of a supervisor, producer, no? It's whole bubble. So here we go. And you notice this clip stops. It'll play a certain few times and it automatically stops because it's being commanded to while I was setting this up. Right? The age old drum and bass. Yeah, so we masked that with effects, brought it in, and we can have so many sections, so many possibilities from just this little combination. I could save if I just stop for a second, whole option, and bring some of these ideas down. What I'll essentially be doing is creating a scene. What is a scene? It's a row of clips that make in a particular song section. So if I just trigger this scene, it's triggering only those row of clips in that particular scene, and then so through playing these ideas up top, I can figure out which ones combine better in which section, in what way, etc. And then we bring it all in. Fun? Yeah. Cool. And I could be, mixing my way out of it using volume faders and a basic controller. I don't necessarily have to have the push, but since I do, I might as well use it. You could still use the mouse to bring things down and fade to black. If I hit the global record button while I did all of this would be recorded into a timeline. And I feel like those musical ideas come alive because then you're really in a playful manner, arranging stuff like you would with different, minded instrument players. But it's all you here. Okay, cool. So that's how we'd work in Ableton Session View. And what's the takeaway from here? That you can use, audio clips, loops, along with drum racks, program a few drums to go, use audio effect racks to embellish these source sounds, and maybe a few warp algorithms to get those chops if necessary. This is using Ableton in its entirety to get your work done. I have a pre-recorded So this is all the work in progress to show you what's doable. And I've deleted everything from the session view. No clips. I've chopped up that loop into a fragment of itself so that I can only play that little intro bit a few times over. Now I'm thinking and working exactly like an electronic musician, you know? Loop the stuff out, get a timeline going. Anyway, and our main idea doesn't come onto a later segment in the song. Okay, I could have completely conceived this idea here, dragged in these clips here, edited them, added fades, reverse stuff, muted some of this. You know, it's like working on the arrangements, like working on a chopping board. You have a lot there that you have to cut away the excesses from, so that what's left is finally a narrative. Okay, think food. Awesome. All right, what I want to show you now is that if you like the arrangement window, if you think and like to work in this particular way to produce your ideas, you can now take stuff directly from the arrangement. For example, if I just choose a couple of bars and I go Command or Control L, it loops this section in the arrangement, but also now I can right click on the top and say consolidate time to a new scene. I showed you what a scene is in the session view. Click on this button. It takes a second and just the stuff in that particular bit. And I'm, going to create one more scene so that we can have something to play with. For the intro 8 bars, right click and say consolidate time to new scene. This should give us two scenes in the session view. There you go, ready to take on stage. And if I want to, this is how I can go about it. Right? Also, the more I produce, and you'll see from the sessions that we go over, every idea is different. And I force myself to do that so that I can stay objective. A producer is also selfish to some extent because whatever they do is a refinement into the next step. For me, I want to stay objective. I don't want to end up teaching a class on how to make hip hop or you know electronic dance music, because obviously I want to encourage each one of you to bring in your own personality, your own creativity to whatever it is you do. Clear? Yes, that should be the goal, even for yourselves when you engineer, produce with, or work with any form of art. Otherwise everything sounds the same, doesn't it? Yeah, that whole techno playlist on Spotify, first track, 48 track, 98 track, everything's the same on here. Okay, just giving you some perspective, that's all. So there we go, those two scenes. Yeah, and no master processing. So everything you're hearing is purely just the sound source, the clip, and a little bit of the audio effect that we presented to you. That is it, and it sounds clean. It sounds good. I hope out there to you guys in the audience and also to everyone at home online. We, yeah, I think that they're there. They're of course here.
Just a question.
Of course.
So while you have put, I mean, you have sourced these samples from that
Yeah.
suit,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have just put them and mixed the music, or you have not. I think I'm seeing you have not even mixed the music maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it sound so perfect? Or you have just
I have.
leveled your
No, 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 no. Good
mixed it and
question. Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. So the gentleman in the audience here has a question. He's saying, "How are you so brilliant?" Okay. Kidding. Absolutely not. He's asking me that even though I've used pre-made loops, uh, why does it sound finished, almost mixed? Because to a large extent I have. If you look at my volume faders, guys, they're not in unity or static. They're all over the place. If you look at the amount of reverb and delay that each one of these tracks is sending to these effect return channels on the far right next to the master, they're all different. And of course, I've discarded more ideas than I've saved so that these come together well. And that is what I've done as a producer. Absolutely. And where does that come from? From understanding engineering, how this will translate, knowing my space, so on and so forth. But brilliant. Yeah, question. I mean, uh, what do you say? Observation. And just to bring it a full circle, here we go. If I go to Ableton's packs, this is where third party developers, Ableton themselves, have a lot of packs on their website. You can explore those, buy some are for free, so that you have more creative ideas to work with. And if I go to packs and I go to Earth, EARTH, there you go. You have Earth Moments. You have a ZenPad Bollywood pack. If I say show default lesson, it talks to me about what this pack is, who made it, what was the idea, what would I possibly find within this. Yeah, and I can also click here and then say, take me to the Earth Moments website so I can explore everything that you guys do. Okay, there you go. Really good boutique samples um, is what I've found. So happy to tell you that. And if you're starting out in Ableton just from the beginning, you'll always have this the core library. What does it have? It's got audio effect tracks, it's got samples, it's got remade MIDI clips, certain grooves, devices, etc. Everything that automatically gets unpacked into the categories on the left. Okay, cool. All right, so moving on from the compliment and the session, we'll go to the next one. Thank you. Yeah, no, you know what, guys? If you look at the program that I'm sure Grace Park Academy has, my own, you'll notice one thing that it's not like okay, day one beat making. I'm like, you make the beats. You go to YouTube, how to make beats on Ableton. You'll find 10,000 videos, better beats that I can ever show you. Do it. Yeah. But realize what it is you're doing and how you're going about it. So I can refine that stuff. There's enough ways to learn this stuff. And if you see the way the course is developed, is what I was saying, is that day one's not beat making. It's an understanding, a foundational understanding of what sound is. How do we hear, right? What equipment do we employ? What is digital technology? What is signal processing? How do you record, etc. And then you come to all of this so that you have a good understanding of how to bring your musical ideas to sound good also. Okay, true story. I have been fortunate enough to be among producer friends, etc., who focus and spend maybe 10 odd hours a day just making music. And honestly, they've had to work equally hard to get their otherwise great tracks to sound good outside of their own environment, which is where the audio engineering aspects come in. Right? You're a producer, no? Otherwise, you accepted that I am a again producer, and you'll call it, but I'm a musician. I can lay down these ideas, send it off to a mixing engineer whose responsibility it is to make it sound blended. Right? If you call yourself a producer and you put out beats that don't sound great, do you think people will care about all the effort you put in? No, for them it's the end result. So you make sure the ideas come together well with the presentation of it. Okay, cool, yeah. So little practice, little knowing your equipment definitely helps. All right, another session here. What's to take away from here? The use of return tracks on the far right in Ableton Live. So in the previous session, you only saw reverb and delay. Here you're seeing three more. What's going on? We'll find out in a second. Let's listen to the ideas first. We good? Everyone's happy? Yes? Awesome. Let's go on. Four tracks, huh? Yeah, if Ed Sheeran can sell out to stadiums with just a guitar and his voice, I'm like four tracks with drums, bass, vocals. I'm still doing more. It's not about 200 tracks. There's a lot that falls apart when you do that kind of stuff. Yeah, kind of getting the listener to guess what's going on. Yeah, that sounds ethnic with these Western harmonies almost. Contemporary art, no, everything goes. You gotta surprise your listener, which is why when you're playing music out to your listeners, you're buying time from them. It's not free. Like you must have heard, no, if it's free, you're the product. Yeah, nothing's free. So you're buying their time and you make sure you give them value for it. Something new, something interesting. Okay? Anyway, it's what I attempt to do. So that's pretty much the source ideas I'm working with. But listen to what happens to let's start with just the drums. When I turn on these tracks that have been switched off, you must have heard of parallel processing. Better? Suddenly the whole drum kit is come alive. What am I doing? I'll tell you and you'll be surprised. Okay? I think as a producer, it's also very important to know what to keep and what to reject. So I must have rejected a bunch of stuff to keep this stuff, but this is what it sounds like now. Way more energetic, warmer. I'll just bring up the overall levels. Decent, but warmth, remember? Yeah, everything's about analog warmth. So those little extra, bit that can go into it can drive so much energy. So what's going on here? Let's break it out. Within Ableton, within audio effects, you have a category called utility. Under that, you have something called audio effect racks. Okay, and this is the one thing that I like to do when I produce music of late, is I like to come to my audio effect racks, right click, create a return track, so I can send a portion of my signal from any track to this return track. And what I then do is I host a bunch of audio effect racks on these return tracks, and I do this arbitrarily. So what I could do is pick up one amp simulation, knowing that it's going to give me distortion, saturation, overdrive. I can pick one that says distortion, so it's going to be heavier and purpose driven, and one that is time based, so a little bit of modulation. It's exactly what I've done here. And then, if to use it, how much to use it could be an element of surprise by sending the elements to it, maybe just the drums and listening to what's happening. If it suits it, you keep it. If it doesn't, you take it away. Make sense? Yeah? Easy. Here we go. Once again, just the drums. Your drummer in the house is very happy. And of course, I'm doing a little bit of on track processing also. There's already a rack on it. Plus, I've done a bit of EQing, compressing, and re-enveloping just to shape it the way I want it. There could be 1,000 permutations of the same drum kit. This is how I like it. Using the split panning to make sure the bass is not far out wide, so there can be room for my melodies, harmonies off to the sides. My bass could be somewhere centered. Yeah, audio clips so far. This is possibly from Earth Moments again. And if I change the warp algorithm, it now retains all the pitching. You can tell what's happening. It's a regional singer, but I don't want to use that. So I can switch that to beats mode, a certain note length, eighth in this case, and I can get those stutter chops, and then maybe I could send a lot of it into a delay, put another delay on it, put some chorusing. The world is your oyster. Okay, again, few considerations to blend it up properly. Can't favor one thing, you have to be objective when you mix stuff or with the ideas that you work with. All good? Any questions? All right, so nothing here as well. We'll move on. I will cover sampling and synthesis also with the next few sessions that we get on to. Don't worry about it. By the way, MIDI, sampling, synthesis, the three I would like to call founding fathers of electronic music, because without them you can't work within a DAW. You need MIDI to send node data to virtual instruments. You need samplers to hold audio recordings, or these pre-made loops within samplers so that you can manipulate and play them. And then you have synthesizers wherein you can generate sounds from scratch if you want to take the trouble too. I say why invent the wheel, right? Because musicians, I find, are very intrigued by this idea of synthesizers. They're like, if I don't know how to operate that wall of complicated knobs and connections, I probably don't know how to make music. And I'm like, those just are like pee pom pom, noise making stuff that you put a sequencer to, you put effects to, very similar to what you're doing here, but just yeah, with the inconvenience, you know, the expense and the inconvenience. So you want to do it, no harm, but to say you shouldn't feel um, deprived of anything once you're aware of what it is. So we come there. All right, what do I have going on here? It says a couple of files are missing. That's weird. In a very different take. Anyway, the one element that I really need working from here is, so we'll come to that. It'll work. Don't worry. It'll have to work. Cool. Media files are missing. Very, very strange situation. There you go. Still a bass missing. Sorry, I might not be able to help that one. Okay, my bad. Although it's all on the same computer, I see no reason. And I could have a one shot. Right? Just that little gush. Again, I love working in the session view for the reason that it allows me a lot of flexibility. Arrange, obviously, we're going to have these ideas segmented. What's amazing here, so what my takeaway from this session is, we'll look at what's going on every track first. Let's go by it track by track. Fair enough? Kick sound, but it's not audio, it's MIDI. So I'm using these triggers. Make sense? We can have these ghosts probably really quiet. Yeah, if velocity responds, that's possible. We can also add pitching. You hear that, no? In the drum rolls, often again. Do you know what's awesome? This kick sound is designed from scratch. Okay, So what's going on here is I'm using Ableton's instrument called Operator, which is an FM synth. Let's just make a copy of this clip. Decent. So what's going on here is with Operator, that's my source sound. Okay. Consider that to be the sound I've recorded of a kick drum. And then using Ableton's effects, the drum bus, a kick membrane emulator. It's a physical modeled device which basically gives you the properties of the kick head vibrating and then a bit of EQing. And this is what you get. This saves me the trouble of hoarding hundreds of kick samples. Because through a slightest manipulation at the source, I'm going to get a very different result. Check this out. Whole different genre ka kick. Yeah. Maybe layer this to an Iron Maiden recording for the beta sound. Who knows? Some kind of speaking bass line. I just save myself a lot of trouble. And it's literally that I've embellished using audio effects. I could get a lot of that done at the source, but I don't like to trouble myself unnecessarily when I know it's possible. There's easier ways to engineer this. That could be a percussion in itself, who knows? Okay, understood. And then because this is FM synthesis, I can also use these different oscillators to manipulate the one main oscillator that we're actually listening to. That's the one that I was working with the volume envelope off. Now, if I go and change, you can hear the characteristics have changed. The harmonic content within this particular sound is different. Correct? It's more rounded. This is more like it. So all I have to do is I can get rid of this kick, no problem. Oh my god, that was the one idea. How did you get rid of it? How are you going to get it back? Do I have to do everything from scratch? Not at all. This is the whole point, you know. When you practice within the digital environment, and there's some things that you've created out of your practice session or something you want to keep for later or retrieve in another session, there's a very easy way to save it. What I normally do is drag the whole track along with the MIDI clip, along with all the chain of events, into something called the user library, into my custom folder called channel strips. Okay, I have tons of ideas. I could probably start a live set right now and change and swap out a few things while this turns into probably a boiler room like event. And truly there is these shuffle hats are my favorites. They're probably in every session. We'll find those. But again, if I want to sift through this and come to my deep design kick, there you go. I just drop it in here. It's got everything you just saw at its default state, plus a little clip going to start me off. Simple? Yeah? Cool. This bass, I'll just delete this. Don't worry if you delete something by mistake. Thank God it's a computer, commands your way back to where you were. So that's a synthesizer where where we design sounds from scratch and any sounds possible. Obviously, if you want a kick sound, you please come to a studio, you find a good drum kit, tune it well, and you're good for that. Please don't go to, the synthesis side of things being like, no, but it doesn't sound like that kick drum. Dude, that kick drum will sound like itself, just like 100 million men will all have different timbres to their voices, and so will women with the same build have slight different annotations, right? So if you want that particular kick, you take it. But if you want something like it, you can synthesize it. But when you're synthesizing, it's 70-30. 70% of knowing where you're heading, 30% of room for happy accidents. When those happen, if it doesn't click and you're not allowed to save it, you pass a good idea. Okay? And so, different from what is happening on the kick, here we have a sampler. Okay? Again, it's MIDI notes triggering this little bass sample. And because it's a sampler, I can swap that sample out at any time. So if I just take a different sound, why does everything kick like in my setup? I don't know, but here we go. If I play this, you get a different color. Similar but different. Wow. Oh, that's because kick is written in the search. Asmit knew that. Good tell. He's very naughty. Here we go. If I move this in, I get something that's incapable of playing, or it does, and it's very quiet. Right? Same notation, just a different sound that I can, of course, control also. You get the idea, guys? So I can use a whole different portion of the sound. No parallel chains here, but I can always add a touch of saturation going into audio effects. Drive and color, they've organized things very beautifully now. And maybe I didn't have to delete that previous sample. I could have duplicated the track and swapped it out to layer these in. So one's giving the bass, which is hard to hear, and one's just giving it enough identification in the mid range to pull it back in. Make sense? Yeah, here we go. That's just like a filler cycle, anyways. You had a question.
Yes, so I just wanted to ask you, it looks like some movie climax scene where you are just alternating with the sound, and sometimes it looks very prominent, and then when the killer approaches nearby to the killing scene, it will just slowing down the music sometimes. So while you are moving around with the samplers and synthesizing the sound, you can record at that point of time the entire piece of the same modulating and just keep on recording the same.
You're on the same page as me. Arranging is a nightmare for me because I feel like, why on earth am I, taking a block and duplicating it, and okay, like I feel foul, and only for the reason that I'm not thinking that way, and I'm forcing myself by, because ऐसा होता है, ऐसा ही करते हैं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं. You're in music, dude. You take a guitar and you bow it, you're being creative. Otherwise, it's going to remain a guitar. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. If I get rid of, okay, and I can do that, if I just select everything, wash it out completely, no arrangement, hit my global record, and go to work from scratch, this is what happens. Starts recording.
And then
Yeah, yeah, whatever we do, that's also come through. Whenever I trigger stuff, so and I really think it's going to be fun to maybe have some pads, to then trigger ideas, manipulate it, and record an arrangement. Even if it's 2 minutes and I play it 40 times, it's still better than having 6 minutes that I play only once and never listen to again. You can make it interesting. Why do you think the push to also being an instrument, if I go into Note mode, it's currently controlling my kick, but I can move to any instrument. Not too bad. Okay, if I hit repeats, then I can also do a little bit. So I'm playing traditional note pitches like you would on a keyboard, but why is this not? Why doesn't it resemble a keyboard like MIDI interface? It's just a bunch of pads that tells me nothing. Why? To me, this is great because it breaks me out of thinking of how an instrument needs to be played. Now I can be like, that pattern works. Yeah, or I can change it. Once I learn that pattern, who cares whether it was to be played like this or like this or like this? Because I've sat against MIDI keyboards and I freeze. Because I'm like, there's a way to play this. I've seen it. Okay. And I want to play it like that. So I'm trying that and being so pretentious that it's not giving into results. Here I can play a chord using 3 fingers. Let's just go to another instrument. Wow. Okay. Let's just pick a grand piano. And you don't need the push. You have like a lot of instruments that can do it, but push does it better than most of those because it's made by Ableton for Ableton. Here we go. If I put a grand piano in, yeah, red no. Okay. And the best part is it's locked all of these pads into a particular scale. What scale I get to choose. If I don't want all these pads in that scale, I can go into chromatic mode. So a bunch of pads light up which belong to a particular scale that we're currently working in a C major for now. But all the notes that are grayed out are still going to be playable. So you can intentionally break out of certain musical scales. Make sense? Yes. Good enough? One element missing. I have to go fix that. This. Ugh. Anyways, sorry. That's only for file management stuff. Here we go. A completely different sounding session. I hope this is giving you guys ideas of what can be done. How many of you have heard Bjork? It's a vocalist. Super weird. You listen to one track of Bjork and you're like, what is going on? But you listen to an album and you're like, I want more. Because then you understand the artist's narrative. That's the way it goes. Here we go. Let's listen to what's going on here. No arrangement. So let's take the liberty of recording one. Machines have taken over. Yeah. And whatever I'm doing, it's recorded. See, if I was a producer, I'd sit 10 hours a day and do this and make sure my next piece is somewhat like this. Good parts are retained, and I'm evolving myself so that I can be on stage and playing. But that's not my aspiration. I love being here. It just so happens. What I'm trying to say is that whatever you practice or whatever you practice toward can become the art that happens. There we go. Could be a bit messy, but it's always nice to have some phrases where there's tension. So it's almost like the listener feels like, okay, I'm kind of, weaning out of what I'm listening to, and then snap, it comes back, right? And again, none of these have a master bus processing, so there's no mastering that's happening for it to sound good. It's all making sure that from the ground up, everything's in place. So it sounds better when it goes to mastering, not like mastering's a salvaging job, which has become. And I laugh because I know some nights when I'm behaving like a surgeon, and I come out of that like this. So anyway, let's do. And you say sometimes when you mute elements, or you pull back the noise or the clutter, everything that's good and already there comes forth. So less is more, right? And that's about 3 minutes or 64, 65 bars worth of an arrangement that can completely be tweaked here as necessary. Stuff can be chopped out, edited for whatever reason. If you were doing all of the programming using a mouse, it generally sounds super robotic. It sounds horrible. Whether you realize it or not, your ears reject it. Okay. Which is why you have grooves and ways to humanize MIDI as well. There are many n- intricacies that you benefit from learning. Let's see what's going on here. I'm pretty sure I have this for a reason. So this is a kick loop, but I've used the drum bass audio effect that's like a Swiss Army knife to get more punch out of it. And the kick itself is in two layers. There's this one deep, big, a little more click just to register. So no rocket science, two different samples layered together. I did hear some sounds that are favorite. Alright, these whatever can progress into many sections of the same song. Now, a quick, let's call it masterclass in sound design. Yeah, because this is my favorite sound. I'll recognize this from a planet away simply because I was very amazed when this happened. For the fact, the sound synthesized, right? Obviously. What is it? Okay. A bit of creative, in this case, mangling, because you normally process for a specific result and you mangle things to break it apart and see what comes out of it. This is what's happening here. The source sounds at these. That's the source sound. It is a simple drum rack with this Congo. So this I've muted the other sounds because they probably will play otherwise. So it's just simple samples. Each one of this is a sample. I'm not even using that. This is the one I'm using. And if I turn on this particular effect rack when I went loco, I use some resonators that basically bring up certain frequencies to being super prominent. That's what this does. So it's extracting pitches and then, changing the timbre, adding rhythmic delay, a little bit of overdrive that's between saturation and distortion, a bit of sidechaining that's obviously not active right now, and a mild amount of auto panning so that it doesn't get too fixated at any point in the sound stage and in the mix. Understood? Yes, what's a drum rack? It's nothing but a rack that can host multiple samples. One fine day I was making techno music, happened to come up with this little, just works, and that it's part of so many productions that I work on. It's not even funny. And here you can see there's a pedal return track that maybe something's going to probably just this here. That's hi-hats filtered, and now I made it percussive. Why? Because of this physical modeled audio effect called corpus. It basically gives you the emulation of a resonator. Like if I mallet resonator, yeah, you blow into a bottle, you know what happens. You play a flute, something similar, and I can change that. This is what I'd use for the kick one, the membrane. So I get a little bit of vibrating membrane. I can use, yeah, contemporary music. You get one hi-hat sample that you like, you're good for life. But you have 10,000, I promise you you're in trouble, because now instead of making music, you'll be like, which one is good? And if you took one out of the 10,000, were the 9999 bad? Right? Yeah, things to think about. What I mean to say is, and it's one of my talking points also, that it's easier than ever, as you can see. The only problem is we're clouded with too many options. Too many options. So you want to practice and define what it is that you want to do, who it is you want to be in the music industry space. There is room for everything and everyone, right? Cool. All right. Just making sure I don't miss anything out. How many of you would like to hear the mixing mastering side of things also? Like what a finished mix sounds like and what a master sounds like. We put something into comparison.
Can you throw something regarding vocals?
Regarding vocals too, let me see if I have something in the projects that are prepared to demo. What in vocals? Anything
Like
specific?
how to design certain vocals, right? We usually when we hear hip hop or like so ad libs, the kind of ad libs they are usually like the sound of ad libs are different from the main vocals, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
how to make that or like
Those ad-libs are usually again short shouts with a lot of processing, usually a lot of low-cut filtering, a lot of chorus, flanging stuff that smears it up nicely, but also gives it some kind of a cue of being separate from the main vocals. I believe we'll see. We'll try and take some vocals and turn those to ad-libs. What's happening here? Another session, very simple. It's called Warrior for a reason that it sounds themed. Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's totally MIDI, okay? So I'm not using. So what I'm trying to do by showing you these different ideas is tell you that anything's possible. This is not a techno engine or a house engine or a, you know, trip hop or hip hop engine. It could do any kind of music. And what do I have going on here? One of the, you know, nicer sounding pieces. Let this just happen. Uh, yeah. you notice, it's a loop, but there's a gap. The drums stop and they'll come back. Very simple. You leave a space in the middle loop, right? The music, after all, is also the space in between notes. If everything's continuous, it's horrible. So what's going on? A drum rack that's cinematic. This Kashmir sound pack. I think I've only used it in this way. And this would be awesome because Kashmir is an electronic house or dance music producer. Now, when you give those samples this range, you're being creative. If you take Kashmir and put it into another electronic dance piece, it's like, okay, you're good. What do we do? You know, there's nothing to release. Give them a reason. So, um, just waiting for this to unmute. So I hope this has so far covered most of the things that brought some ideas to you and possibly things you expected also. Yeah, awesome. Cool. I don't know why this is buffering.
You had also recently
Okay. Go on, go on.
so you had I recently posted on Instagram that you had Levi's.
Yeah, Levi's. The more recent one was Vogue Eyewear. Yeah. You want to hear that mix master? Oh my god. That's where I put on those operation gloves, get into the operation theater. Okay, because you know why? Some very talented musicians are on the move. They don't have access to their home studio or their studio or a studio like this all the time. So what the Vogue ad is, and I'll pay it to you, no problem, is literally production that's happened within the confinements of a laptop, headphones, some monitors in a room that's untreated, but beautiful musicianship, and then mixed and then mastered. You'll hear it when I play that out. So anyways, this is just some string samples that are playing as chords, melodies, and then you have a drum track here as an example of a very different sound and style project within Ableton. Sounds good? Yeah. So I'll cut through a little bit just to make up for time. Did you ever think? And I'll play the next one because it's an arrangement and it'll be good. I can give my vocal cords some rest. Ear breaks, very important. Okay, after every 45 or 50 minutes of production, take 10-15 minutes off. Do visual stuff. No, like, next, like, watch later. Do visual stuff. Reply to texts, emails. When's my, you know, invoice due? Or just a day in my life. Joking. But don't do anything auditory because it's a muscle. You can give it a break, rest it. When you come back after that quick break, you actually will have more perspective on things that have happened. You can correct stuff and stick. Whatever you've done will stick, rather than working for 8-10 hours at a stretch, coming the next day and being like, oh shit, this wasn't me. Who came to my studio? Yeah, we know that's happened. Okay, so here we go. This particular track for me was a challenge. If you can see, there's a bit happening in the session view, after which I quickly went into the arrangement, and the rest is all in the arrangement. It's called Pigments. I'll play it out as it is from scratch. All of this has been made using one synthesizer, probably except for the kick. That's called Pigments by Arturia. I love doing this, taking a synth and being like, tu gaya, and then exploring what it's capable of. So then, yeah, it's good for next time. Anyway, check this out. in case you like complications. Here we go. Most synths look complicated only for the reason that there's effects added here and there. There's sequencer. It's not too intriguing, don't worry. That's Pigments, the synth by Arturia. It's beautiful. It's wavetable. You can see these scenes are already waiting to be triggered, which means that they've been commanded to automatically do that after playing a certain, number of loop iterations. There you go. You have the little shaker come in. So I can be free to play some instrument. Maybe I could actually do that. Why not? So electronic music now. And here I am. So I put in an instrument. I can maybe start twiddling with that. Whatever. Again, this is using some of Ableton's fantastic native instruments. There's a polyphonic synthesizer. There's something dedicated to playing bass. It's called bass. Using a lot of Simpler, which is a simple sampler. You should go check it out. Place it on, if you take an audio clip and just place it within the device, which is the bottom view on the track, device view, it's going to open into a Simpler. So it's ready to be sampled and played.
I think it's good for some sort of small, say, sound designing. It's a very appropriate software for that. And it looks so easy as far as I see. So, do you have any such version where some company or somebody has given you, let's say, 1 minute of an ad, and you have said that you compile, make it one, just compose and release?
So
Is
again,
there anything like that we can see that how you have gone on? What's your approach on that?
so these are things that I do when it comes to composition.
Yes.
Now, if you're a smart, ad agency, you wouldn't come to me for composition because I'm an educator, mastering engineer, Ableton Certified Trainer. You know, you go to somebody whose music you like, who's got lyrical and compositional skills so that they can lay down the idea. The Vogue ad, which I'll bring up,
Right. Yes.
is an amazing idea because Kavya, the singer songwriter who's written the lyrics, she's written it brilliantly to picture. Like she's taken a simple word like superstar. I want to be a superstar, and she's written this, short thing around it. It's beautiful. So again, as a composer, the mindset would be, to knowing which keys, give you what kind of a feeling, and then exploring those to, suit the picture. For me, what I do is this to show you what's possible. But it's very easy if you had a video also to put it in the arrangement and accordingly score to picture. It's totally doable. Quick one, and then we get out. And despite of my attempts to not be very generic with my productions, we might have maybe looked at my restrictions personally as a human being of production, performative, and ideation capabilities when it comes to music making. Nothing wrong with that, right? So if you're a keyboard player, you're not possibly going to think as percussively. And I sometimes joke with my students in my batches that I was probably part of some African tribe in my past life. These guys have heard it. Because of my affinity to percussions, I also learned the djembe for some time, and that's got only three notes to it. And then you're writing rhythms. And personally, I love house music. If not for house music, I might have never taken up sound engineering, music production. Obviously, all this from the early clubbing days. So, what I do in terms of my music practice isn't to actually get me projects to score, but is to show you guys what's possible. Fair enough, yeah? Cool. All right. Again,
Can you?
yeah, yeah, I am. I am. So, just saying that if you, for example, and this has happened, so I'm not going to name names, but if you look at a very successful music producer also, and you go to a workshop wherein they're showing you, how they use Ableton or what it is, they might show you 40% of the entire software that they use. Period. They're world famous. They're getting projects but after practice and a few years of toying around with these things, they figure that hey, I don't need this much. It's always excessive. For me, this component is essential. You set up a template of sorts and you get to working. The more you repeat it, the more chances of success. Again, if you're always going to have variables do things very differently, I don't think you can improve at all, because you know there's too many variables to the process. Instead, if you set a process up like I taught these guys to mix, having a certain workflow in place so that you repeat the workflow, and if you have any feedback, any improvements to be made, you make it within that workflow so that improvement's permanent. Make sense? Yeah. All right. There are many projects of this sort that I have worked with. Some are completed, some are work in progress. So yeah, they're color coded to tell me that okay, these are safe to maybe open. I have to go through a bit. I'll just show you one before I open the mastering. I won't open the project. I don't have it here, but I can play the mix and the master for you to hear, and we'll level match them. Because everybody thinks mastering is about might. It's about adding loudness. And I'm like, do one thing, you make it as loud as you want to. Let me make it better, more balanced, clear it up, process it for frequency, balance, tonal depth, bass control, many aspects to the same piece, rather than just taking stuff and making it mindlessly loud. Because what YouTube and Spotify and SoundCloud and everyone's doing is they're taking loud stuff and they're turning it down. Why are they doing this? Because everyone kept pushing everything to be as loud as one would want. And then it became fatiguing to hear these pieces because they don't sound natural anymore. It's super loud. So they said, you know what? We'll turn it down. Instead, what we leave room for now is transient peaks. So if you have a percussive sound that should have a nice open peak and an average sustained signal, but you compress that mindlessly to sound, you know, it's going to sound small. But you leave that peak open, it's going to use that added headroom. Some sets take longer than usual to load up because this particular one is a Max for Live instrument. What's Max for Live? It's an expansion of Ableton wherein you can get in touch with the Max for Live programmer. You can learn Max for Live. It's visual based coding, so you can create audio effects, instruments, MIDI effects, anything you want, purpose built for something that you're looking to achieve. Makes sense? Yep. So hope this gives you a good overview of Ableton. Yeah, awesome. And it's called Live for a reason that it's created around this idea of live performances and even curating production ideas in real time. You can be a one man band because stuff is sort of looping over in the session view, not necessarily to a timeline, but clip based looping, so on and so forth. You get the gist. Okay. Hmm. In the meantime, let me see what I can play you in terms of Yep, I have the Vogue code. I can play you the mix master. Today only a hip hop track also dropped um, by Ray Mullah. He's a rapper from Bombay. Um, you should check him out. I find his music very raw, very real, very, yeah. It's not pretentious to me at least, and that's how rap should be, in my opinion. So check it out, yeah, if you want to. What's happened to Ableton? It's launching a session. Guys online, I hope you're doing okay. I hope you've been able to see and hear everything. We have a few guys in class also. I'm sure you can see them. And wherever you are, yeah, I'm hoping this has brought you some ideas and things to probably work with. Okay, we come back to this. I have learned it's best not to fight computers. It needs a break.
Yeah.
Restart it. All right. Ah, there you go. So yeah, I'm just trying to get rid of Spotify. Also, just from Spotify popping open, I can tell you one thing: listen to a lot of music that you maybe don't directly appreciate, listen to, or want to make. It'll give you ideas. It'll teach you, nuances about instrumentality, balance, just general stuff. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it, and hopefully work towards that. Protect your ears in super loud environments. We're in nasty abusive environments. Okay, when we're out there at a concert, at a club. So try and protect your hearing. It's precious, and everything depends on it. So I've worked very hard. My whole career is built on training these guys. So what's my main gear? It's my ear. Simple. And then, obviously, having developed a room over 10 years with small nuances and small improvements over time in terms of acoustic treatment, in terms of monitoring, this is how mastering has also, constantly improved. My work wherein I do mixed reviews, etc., is constantly improved. Production is, rudimentary for most part, but mixing is something that I do very well. I'll open a mixing project also. Cool. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know why this particular project is taxing my computer a little bit. So, in the meantime, what is it that you do as a musician now?
I produce songs across all genres actually.
Awesome.
I've worked with Grace Park on a lot of the client projects.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do my own songs as well. And then I'm in the live as well. I do recording as well. I'm in the studio. I work with a lot in the Bombay ad industry.
Oh, nice.
So sound design is one of my major things that I do as well. And yeah, like
So you're for most part based out of Bombay?
no, I stay in Pune.
Okay.
For most.
But you go
I
and
work
come.
with Bombay studios. So.
Hey, awesome.
Yeah.
I fist bump to the fact of bringing work to Pune rather than going to
cannot
Bombay.
survive in the thing over there, so I just prefer to do it here.
You're just like me then.
Yeah, on my
I love the energy that Bombay has,
yeah,
don't get me wrong. And it gives you also, but
it's taxing. Yeah.
for someone from Pune, it's like,
Yeah.
send us work. Okay. All right. Good. Nice to hear that. Superb. And you? Nice. Ray Mullah. Check him out. Ray Mullah. Dangerous dude. Dangerous dude on the rise. Very good. Very good rap. And hi, what do you do? Right. Excellent. Excellent. So again, you're a musician, and then this tool can help you record yourself and right. Nice. How is FL for recording? Is it good? Okay. Okay. I feel it. Okay. Cool.
So I'm not sure. Maybe I will try it after courses.
Understood. Because I've heard a lot about FL and good things about how good it is for production, and a lot of people use it, especially in the hip hop scene also. So just trying to make sense of that.
I finished studies.
I don't think the screen is.
Okay. Did that just stop now?
I think you quit the app. Yeah, about like
Oh,
3 months.
sorry, sorry. Okay, okay, okay. Thanks, thanks, thanks.
No problem.
Cool. So here's a mix project. If we have time and I can play it. I just don't like opening WhatsApp like ever. But here we go. Present. Keep distractions away when you're in creative flow. Or don't. I don't know. Whatever works for you. Are we good? Yeah, we're streaming again. I think so. He'll tell us otherwise. Chalo, if this plays, we're good. So Ableton's still loading up a few files. Large projects take some time. So this is a producer called DJ Rave. He's from Delhi, Gurgaon. This is his track, not mine. I've not taught him how to produce. He's done. Okay. So what do I do?
Yes.
Where is that? Okay, but why can't I click on anything? I'm trying, no? Hmm. Cool. Should I try again? Maybe I'll take my phone off airplane and that'll fix everything. Yep, I'm just trying again. All right. It said entire screen share. Now it should be okay.
Yeah, it should. The screen should pop up that you're presenting.
Now it should be okay, no? I just did the share screen. Yeah. Here we go. It's getting ready. Cameras.
It's
So a present. Is it the Wi-Fi? Is it my computer? I can't tell at this point. Is that now sharing?
yes.
Yep.
That's
Sound branding. Yeah. Sound branding. Awesome.
Yeah.
Apologies to everyone online. Sorry, we lost you there for a moment. I was just trying to toggle Ableton to work again, and I might have closed the app. But Ajay from Grace Park has been keeping an eye, so we know immediately. You haven't missed anything. We just toggle between a session now to one that is completely mixing based. So I'm hoping I could get through the tracks and play back this heavy session alongside streaming to show you what's going on a track by track basis. Here we go. Hopefully, it sounds good out there. This is mixed online. He was in Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida, Haryana. It's too far away to. So anyways, when it comes to mixing, okay, while this plays, um, we might not be able to navigate, but I'll just tell you my philosophy. When it comes to mixing, now as a producer, like you heard in my session and you said it sounds good, I'm obviously wearing my mixing hat alongside the work that I'm doing so that I can make sure that everything that I'm doing sounds good. Eventually, I'm not going to have a separate mixing process for it, right? But I'd love to say that when stuff comes purely for mixing, I like to follow a workflow, saying this is my source sound, this is what I have to use. Now, what are my tools? Main thing, the volume fader to get my balance going, then EQing to get all of them to sound their best and cohesive with others. Little bit of dynamic range control. Because we're mixing digitally, little bit of tonal infusion through saturation, overdrive, distortion in some cases, parallel chains, reverb and delay. So for me, all of mixing is simple. It's just balance, volume, frequency control, dynamic control, tonal control, and time-based control. Done. Then you automate whatever you want as much as you want. What's the problem? The problem is when you don't understand that these are separate processes that you're executing together, and when you're producing, you forget whether you're doing something to mix it or to produce it, and then everything's like you know, a very odd raw mixture. The problem with doing that is if you get good results, awesome. Tukka lag gaya, you're happy, you release something, you're famous, good. But now if you have to do it again, you're screwed because you'll have to create that mess again, and it's difficult to create a mess again. So you rather brew something through a workflow and a process so that you can keep rebrewing it. And that's all that's happening in this session. There's EQs, maybe one or two third-party EQs like the Pro Q or something. I think only Pro Q. Two or three different compressors for tonality, because if I use the same compressor, there's going to be the same shades. A little bit of saturation, time-based processing. And this is one of the most recent mixes that we did. And I tell my students, give me something that's 25, 30 tracks, so we can go through everything. If not, then I can't possibly mix a 200 track session and explain stuff to you and make it look good. So again, what's happening on the master? Monitoring, some control for dimming and monoing my sound stage for references, a little bit of phase shift, some grouping, multi-band, third party, a little bit of chorus, limiting, maybe a few creative effects. We're not going to get into all of this, but just saying it's a long breakdown. And there's a process. You don't mix a whole track. You mix the main section, then you can automate the rest. If you sit mixing the whole track, you keep losing context and it drives you crazy. You can never mix that up. And again, I follow all the greats, the old school people, and I'm like, okay, they're doing it in a studio with an analog board. What do I need to do to emulate that within the realms of technology? Because I'm a music technologist, I firmly believe in like tools. That's the raw kick. It's already decent. Then now you can hear it's slightly tightened up. That's crunchy, munchy, whatever. Then there's a bit happening on the group, on the hat, but I'll never let go of individual processing. I know there are people on YouTube being like, it doesn't matter what stuff sounds like individually, it's the whole set of things. Those guys have been doing it for 40 years. They're probably involved from the recording stage. So they know how things have come together to shape it such, or they have hacks. Doesn't hurt me to tighten up, the little collar sleeve for every individual element so that when they come together for the group, it looks good. Tambourine, very sweet instrument. See, it's a little bit sharp from what I hear without the processing. With that, it's back up a little bit. So again, just minuscule things. Nicely toned percussions, because what are percussions if they don't have tonality to them, no? But not necessary that the source was. Okay, cool. Just to give you just it's a last session. There's a lot of work that's gone on. Yeah, I have a lot of fun mixing, but I'm a purist. Most of us are, but at least we're old enough to be. So Atmos pads, you're hearing the different layers that come together in this track. Yeah, so I'm a purist. I love teaching how to mix. I love mixing stuff. The only problem is that if I've mixed something, I will not master it.
Sir, question is
Yeah, because the same set of years doing the mix master lose perspective. So I'm like, I'll teach you how to mix. I'll give you feedback once, twice. After that, I want fresh perspective on it to take it to the whole next level. Nowadays, technology allows you to produce, mix, master, do everything. Just like a moving car allows you to open the door and jump out. Do you? No. The bigger question now is should I? Right? Could I? Sure. Why not? That roof also opens. You can run off. You know, do Matrix Neo stuff. Not like the outcome will be the same. But you get the idea. You can. Question is should you? Think about it. Sorry.
तो जैसे आपने किट पे यूटिलिटी डाला एनी स्पेसिफिक रीजन कि आपने यूटिलिटी से वॉल्यूम कम करिए rather than reducing the output of compressor.
नहीं बढ़ाया है मैंने
Okay.
1 dB. तो क्यों बढ़ाया है बिकॉज उसके पहले पल्टेक है.
Allow you to do that.
Yeah, Pultek's not giving me an overall makeup gain, so maybe to compensate for the two EQs before. And Pultek's a beast of an EQ for those of you who don't know. You get these resonant curves, a boost and a cut at the same frequency. Sounds like Maggie with extra. Okay, cool. So that's that. Let me show you something vocal oriented. तेजस के ट्रैक में vocals था नहीं था ना नहीं था mixing ऑडी अमन
Chop से vocals वो भी काफी पीछे रखे थे.
okay chalo this one cool
वैसे vocal
fine this is not got ad libs, it's a rock track but like, and the thing is I'm also using a hardware sort of DSP processor, so my interface has got a little bit of computing power to support some plugins that I use of it. But I've trained myself in a way that I don't rely on any of them ever. Like it should be the year for most part. So use it, don't excessively use it. So it's fine. Okay. This thing doesn't have vocals, sorry. And a vocal. So this was I think a project available for free on the internet. So to get the stems and practice mixing with, there are vocals for sure, but so yeah, immersive mixes, yeah, it's got to be three-dimensional, you know. Whatever you do, monitors are left and right. Make sure stuff is up and down, left and right, front and back. Use that, and if you do that right, you'll see there's no need for speed shift audio unless the format requires it, unless you can reproduce it correctly. Yeah, so a little bit of vocals here. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, that is pretty, ad libby. And if I turn off whatever I'm doing to it, that's A lot of chorusing, a lot of like harmonizing, a lot of reverb to it already. If it wasn't there, we could then, add up our own mixture. I'm using a simple EQ to shape it up quickly. Knock off some air. It's too much. That sounds artificial. Then it sounds to me like auto tune ka artifact. So I don't want that. And then a bit of compression, limiting. I love using limiters and mixes, but not in the master. Not for what you think. My students know vocals, bass. Nicely get them to be plastered in the mix. It sounds awesome. I hope you guys have been using whatever you learned and nailing mixes. Good. So again, contemporary art here. Everything goes pop elements with like an electronic kick with like rock drums. I think you're only limited by your ideas. You don't have to follow any pocket. You could be doing guitar stuff with some electronic taps to it. So, all I'm saying is you don't need any more than what you do or require. Sorry, I'll close that. And that's it. For the last demo, I will play back the Vogue ad. So I'll play you the mix of what I receive and the master. We'll try and level match it so you can tell sonically the difference that happens, and not just the level difference, because I hate that. I mean, people have been making music stupidly loud since we can remember. There we go. That's the pre-master, and I think the pre-master sometimes can be louder than my master also. Huh. No guarantee. Today's engineer producers are, you know, aiming hot. So I'm like, it's cool. If I can make it sound better, I'm going to do that still. So here we go. Vogue Masters 30-second. Huh. This is the one, correct. And if I'm in doubt, because there's vocals, there's other elements, I might send the client one or two versions, telling them what my preference is, and luckily we didn't have to change it from there. So here we go. This is the mix.
Growing up, I always wanted to be a superstar. A superstar. Small steps. Big way making superstars. Owning who we are, like we are superstars. And we got the love, true to the core. We know, cause we know that we are superstars.
Cool. I'm just going to up that by 3 dB or a little more, not too much, so it can match the energy of the master track and we'll hear what goes on. There's a little bit of a surprise for you in there. Listen to this carefully. Okay, that's 6 dB, almost twice as loud. Here we go.
Growing up, I always wanted to be a superstar. A superstar.
Yeah.
Small steps. Big way making superstars. Owning who we are, like we are superstars. And we got the love, true to the core. We know, cause we know that we are superstars.
There's the master.
Growing up, I always wanted to be a superstar. A superstar. Small steps. Big way making superstars. Owning who we are, like we are superstars. We got the love, true to the core. We know, cause we know that we are superstars.
By the time it comes to me as a mastering engineer, I don't care if you spend the past 15 nights perfecting that bass sound. I don't care. And I don't want to know. If I know, then I'll have that sympathy, or that bass has to be this much, right? That's the whole point of having a fresh ear on the master. I'm like, okay, boop, I get this. This is what it should sound like. because it can be played on any device, anything from that speaker to that speaker to this speaker to this speaker. So, we're tailoring it for that. You could hear a difference, I hope.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I had told them that if you don't like what's going on, we can change a few things in the mix, which is when I realized that if I up the mix by 3 dB, the vocals distorted. And in my master, I've upped it almost 8 dB, where probably with such precision and EQing that the crackle's gone. I'm not kidding you, I haven't used a D crackle. Okay, if you pay me my life's worth, I'll show you the project. But it makes sense, yeah. Okay, so that's that. And do you guys want to hear a hip hop track and we can close? Yes. Profanity is okay. Yeah. No one's gonna go and be like, "Oh, look, ma, that rapper." Okay. My playlist is probably the hardest thing to find on YouTube. It's called Wavescraft Mastering, and I haven't added this yet, anyways, because it just released. But I'll play this and we can close for today. Here we go. So you'll hear his evolution also. Don't tell me he's taken it down. यार ये कुछ भी करता है. Yeah, something's up. I need to check what that is. Anyway, this was the previous one. Again, even for an artist, no, sometimes when you follow their timeline, and I enjoy that personally, you hear a history. You hear that rawness, then an improvement, then an improvement, then there's a certain charm to that. So that's what you do here with some genuine artists who refine their craft over time. You know what? Actually, what happened? Hey, here it is, man like me. Sometimes I don't know what I'm looking for. It's okay. Knifey, wifey, man like me. Very, very, very talented guy. Please play, man. Come on. Okay, here we go.
Who wanna fuck with a man like me? I dropped out, no college degree. Who wanna fuck with a man like me? I kill you and I do it for free. I kill a beat and I do it for free. I kill a beat and I do it for free. Who wanna fuck with a man like me? You will fuck with a man like me, bitch. Don't start selling last fuck that shit. Hurry, I don't need the money, mostly the money. The more they don't need to be it heavy, they be a steady. More super flame, prepaid to be a yachty. LFW in my dirty Adidas. And you like LA, I don't work for we fuss. Pump up my chest, poke out my best coke face. I'm standing cute, big boy, the way I hold the frame. Run up your ass and keep working on photo game. Don't forget who daddy is, daddy don't wanna entertain. Who wanna fuck with a man like me? I dropped out, no college degree. Who wanna fuck with a man like me? I kill you and I do it for free. I kill a beat and I do it for free. I kill a beat and I do it for free. Who wanna fuck with a man like me? You will fuck with a man like me. It's like I did a track with a sweater swag, and I don't trust anybody unless they dressed in black. But I'm back in my bag. I'm every cliche, no cap or facts. The only thing I fear is myself and what I might say. Bless you, you caught me on a nice day. H&M sweater, the only hit I know. Don't ask me my salary, that's the brother code. Yeah, I got a show, I can do 100 more. I'm the businessman, I might need another phone. Who wanna fuck with a man like me? I pull up and they know me with no ID. The true stuff, when you hang on to the old life beats. My new stuff, LIB off the R.I.P. Even though some haters, I can see it in your body language. Just man just told me I can not be man is. I've been running through these beats. Freedom, don't mean I'm for free. I've been helping out the names for the POV. Everyone fake, even me, but I be low key for me. Fuck with a man like you. Who want to fuck no college degree? Who want to fuck with a man like you? Who want to fuck with a man like me?
Yeah, I mean, it's raw, real, whatever. Last. And his productions are wild. There's samples, and he drives his engineer producer mad. Okay, it's okay. I'm one of them as well.
Nice wifey on the other side. X-Men looking mortified. White boy wanna colonize, then he dip out soon as I arrive. Bad bitch doing hella musty. Fanboys getting hella slutty. Andrew Tate saying go to Subby. I don't care, I'm just making money. All of this nudity Nagaland. All of this nudity Instagram. All of your women got a demand. When I walk others for 100 grand. He don't get, he want his daddy back. He carry shame in his fanny pack. I got ambition, I'm all the dark. But when I'm with you, I fall apart. I tell her push back, she said, oi, oi, oi. My knifey wifey drive me crazy, yeah, yeah. She do the bed, I clean the play, yeah, yeah. My knifey wifey drive me crazy, yeah, yeah. Oi, oi, oi. She said, oi, oi, oi. My knifey wifey drive me crazy, yeah, yeah. She do the bed, I clean the play, yeah, yeah. My knifey wifey drive me crazy, yeah, yeah. She run up and tell me that I am a lover. Locked up and go out, we go undercover. She wanna take photos and run up her numbers, and I understand why you enjoy the club. Air out the dirty laundry. I get too loud and lobbies. Blame it all on the caffeine. I call the taxi like, girl, you happy? She want the sunlight, I want the spotlight. I tell her come back, she needs some more time. She call it Bombay, I call it Mumbai. She tell me chill out, I wanna go. I broke down like 100 times. She what I wanted all my life. What do I do to make her cry? Without you, girl, I'd rather die. I tell her push back, she said, oi, oi, oi. My knifey wifey drive me crazy, yeah, yeah. She do the bed, I clean the play, yeah, yes. My knifey wifey drive me crazy, yeah, yeah. Oi, oi, oi. She said, oi, oi, oi. My knifey wifey drive me crazy.
Okay, sorry, sorry. Took yeah, took us back to the started. Anyways, apologies. We'll anyways stop there. We won't resume this. I hope you had a good time. Thank you for coming. Thank you guys online. Appreciate it. Please put to practice whatever it is you've seen today. Take more anecdotes from the internet. If you're just starting out, there's a brilliant browser based tool called learningmusic.ableton.com. It takes you on a page by page basis for beat making, bass line, melody, so on and so forth. It's a great place to start as well. Okay? It's called learningmusic.ableton.com. That's the one. All right, pleasure being here. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.